Hey, this is Curt Victor Bryant, and you're listening to XVGM Radio.
Welcome to XVGM Radio, where the bits keep coming. I'm Justin.
And I'm Mike.
And this is episode 44, Valfaris, with Curt Victor Bryant.
Yes, we have a special guest with us, and it's kind of heavy metal royalty in a way. So,
definitely.
And pretty excited. So, Curt, thank you so much for joining us to talk about your game, Valfaris.
My pleasure. How you doing, guys? It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Yeah, we're doing great. We're happy to have you on the show. We're stoked.
Every composer interview is always a delight, and
for sure.
Like this one, like Mike just said, is a little extra special because I don't think we've ever really had a composer that was also, like you said, a rock star.
Right. It's pretty cool. Valfaris is a game that was developed by Steel Mantis. And also, I believe, Stage Clear Studios is also listed as the developer. The game is a action, side-scrolling, platformer, run and gun, just a giant conglomeration of everything you loved about Contra, basically.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very like Contra, but like wicked heavy metal.
Right. And literally heavy metal in a way, because it's inspired not only by the world of heavy metal music, but also Heavy Metal Magazine. The visual aesthetic and aspect is just oozing character and life.
And also there's a lot of metals that are heavy in the game.
Yes.
But yeah, no, that was one of the first things that I noticed when you brought it over, and we were playing for a little bit. I haven't played any of the newer Contra games, I'll be honest. Like it has a lot of these side-scrolling shooters have a very Contra feel, but there's a lot of games that have come out more recently, like Risk of Rain and stuff like that, where you're constantly getting like weapon upgrades or changing them or things like that, and going all over the screen, and it feels like that with just like this heavy metal aesthetic, and we're going to say heavy metal a lot during this episode.
Rightfully so. Yes.
And it reminded me a lot of the movie, like not the newer one, but the original heavy metal, movie from what was it, the 90s,
like the 80s,
90s.
Yeah.
80s probably.
Yeah. So the track we came in on was called Torture March, and that's basically the introduction to the game when you first start up the game, and you're on the load screen, which is this awesome like seafoam green background.
Oh yeah.
With like all this like these crazy, it's almost like a red scarred chain link fence in the background, and you've got your main hero standing there in this epic pose, his long hair flowing, his battle armor glowing, and he's got his giant gun in hand, and he's ready to rock, both literally and figuratively. So that is kind of your introduction to the game, and this track plays. Curt, tell me a little bit about this track and how it came to be the introduction to Valfaris.
Well, I don't know. I don't think I did the song as the first song when I started composing and recording the songs for the game. It's probably right smack in the middle out of the 25 songs that are in there or something like that. Because it was done a little blind. Let the gut feeling go with it. You know what I mean? I the whole thing should not be the same thing I did with the Slain Back from Hell game. I didn't want to go in, and that was one of my criteria. I didn't want it to be all designed, that kind of stuff. I really wanted to go in and have the metal flow through my body, and just whatever comes out that moment, and that usually feels good, because if I'm told, hey, go in and make me one that sounds something like this, well, first of all, boring. Second of all, I'll probably never live up to whatever you're telling me to do. And on the other hand, it's not going to work, because whenever you tell me to do something, I usually come up with the opposite. So we decided, let's just play out in the beginning. That's how we all got together anyway. Let's see. Let me send you some stuff. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, nobody's going to cry. We're just going to make another one.
Right.
And this one was right in the middle, and it was funny because this is probably the first time I saw the main character standing there with that. I forgot what it's called. That one has a special name, that gun. I don't know if it's the Warhammer or something, because they actually made a lifelike replica of it that they have at the conventions where people can take selfies with it.
That's cool.
And it lights up and everything, smoke comes out of it. I think it does everything besides actually destroying the whole neighborhood.
See, now that's a lost opportunity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see the military walking around with giant lasers, like guns, these giant Valfaris style guns. That'd be awesome.
I would love everybody walking around.
Yeah.
It's so much easier.
Seriously.
We would have a lot less traffic,
Yeah, definitely. A lot less road rage.
Probably have this interview right now because, I'll probably be the first one to be blasted. But yeah, coming back to the sound, it was just one of those, it was standing there. And there's actually another version I have on that one, because I recorded that one actually in Germany. Okay. I flew out to a special studio in Hamburg that's like pretty famous and has a lot of capability regarding certain tones and all that stuff. And I actually brought in like a choir of the stuff you hear in the back. That is, but I had like way more in it. But even though sound-wise it sounded so much more badass, but it was almost badass cliche, if you know what I mean. It's almost like, oh, oh, here he's going to go with the evil monk choir, that kind of thing. So it was almost obvious to put it on there. And again, even though it sounds really freaking wicked when I listen to it, in retrospect, I'm glad I used a version that actually doesn't have it, and just the back, just that way, because you're probably familiar with the soundtrack now. Again, this is not a metal record or something. Right? It was literally done visually, soundtrack like a score. And I know some metal fans might be cringing right now when I say that, but it's almost a little new agey. Like it can almost put you to sleep, but yet it can also infuse you insane power. At the same time. So that's how that one came about. It's just that's when the first time I saw, what this guy's gonna look like and all that stuff. Again, it sounds cliche, but I have metal flowing through my veins. So I just put on the guitar, and the first thing was like, I'm like, oh, hi,
That's awesome.
So I got a beat to it, and that's how the whole thing came out. But I think it was pretty much I probably already 10 songs in before I did that one, and how they all placed it, how it became the first one, it was just choosing at the end which one works best for what. Because again, I did not have all the layouts, not that I couldn't have it, but I just didn't want it. I wanted to make it blindly the songs and then see how they fit, because for whatever reason it always worked out. So I'm like, I'm not going to mess with something that works.
That's really interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Most of the composers that we talk to, they are usually composers first, but their initial love is video game music. So they're working on composing tracks that are fit for a specific style and a specific level, so to speak. So most of them are saying like, they needed a fire level, they needed a wind level, they needed an ice level, and they kind of write music to fit the mood. And it's kind of refreshing to see somebody come in with an outside perspective, obviously a heavy metal perspective, but a composing perspective where they're just like, nope, forget that. We're just going to jump in, and I'm just going to write a bunch of music and
then see what fits.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool, I gotta say. And the fact that it works out, like, I mean, for the title screen music, it feels to me like a perfect fit.
I do a lot of soundtracks for movies and other games and stuff like that. So it's not just metal is all I do. So that's why sometimes the other composers that work just specific for a certain level, I think it's great if you totally have a guidance to do it, and sometimes you need to have that, you know what I mean? There's totally nothing wrong with that. On this one, and especially like I said, bouncing off Slain, Back from Hell, we learned that whatever goes, so nothing could be wrong, you know what I mean? If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, but nothing, and you probably realize, because I saw from your list, you picked some songs, and we're going to talk about it. Some of the songs, technically, musically, or who knows, what do you want to call it, don't even make sense. But man, do they fit inside the game, that kind of stuff.
That's true.
And I live totally different too, because I actually bounce off a lot of that stuff I've been doing the last couple of years with that. Even my history in the music business, I always had the freedom to do stuff that other people go like, what the heck is this? And then later on they're like, oh wow, badass, especially with Celtic Frost and all that stuff. So even more so, kind of going into 2020, I'm like, what? Why don't we all just going to be fearless? Let's just do something. If it doesn't work out, so what? I'm not going to get a trophy. But hey, at least I did it completely from the heart, from the gut, from the metal. And I think the game is like that too. If somebody would tell you in the beginning, hey, I'm going to create a metal game, you know what I mean? You would think it's all black and red, basically, And look at the colors that Valfaris has.
I know.
mean, some of the greens and yellows, I'm sure there's some metal fans that are like, oh, you can do that? No. Freaking do it, because it's pretty, it's awesome the way it looks. Oh, for sure. So.
It's really impressive to look at. You've got a lot going on with this song. I mean, you've got the ominous opening with like a very militant sounding intro, and then the guitars, they're there initially, but they're like very creaky at first before like the chorus stabs kind of come in. Then it almost sounds like the intro to like a really brutal like metal album that you'd hear where like a lot of metal bands are like, oh, we're gonna do this really like grandiose like effort like in the beginning, and then we're gonna come in and punch you in the face with an awesome like heavy track. But then you throw kind of a curveball there, because just after like the 2-minute mark, you get like a softer piano that almost sounds like something out of like an 80s slasher movie. It was pretty cool. And then the guitars pick up a little bit. It gets a little more chuggy before everything kind of like crashes together it's like all converging towards the end of the song to try to like end it like with a bang. And you know, if you've sat at the title screen and listened for the 3.5 to 4 minutes of the track, it's pretty cool. It's like an entire experience kind of wrapped up in one longer song. So.
It's a slow burn, which is what I like.
Yeah,
it starts off so like low and slow, and then it ramps up and it keeps ramping up, and every time it ramps up, you're like, oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah,
and then just something else comes in, and it's just like, where's it going to go, or is this it? Like, because it's title screen, like, where how far are we going?
Right.
It just keeps going.
Thank you for the compliment. And that's really what I wanted to do with all of them. And you can tell in some of the songs, I like to build things up. And obviously, I love horror movies and all that stuff. And I do a lot of soundtracks for horror movies, especially right now. And I love it, and that's the whole thing, the suspense. It's like, oh, is there something else coming or not? And even some of the songs I did where you're like, oh, here it comes. And then it doesn't. It almost leaves you pissed off. As long as I can evoke some kind of emotion and that kind of thing, and you were sucked into it, you know what I mean? I'm already good to go with it.
Yeah.
I just finally started playing it about a week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And again, I'm not the biggest, gamer. But I used to be as a kid and all that stuff. So I'm still pretty good on the fingers. But you have to repeat a whole bunch of times. And I was afraid that if you hear the same thing over and over, it's going to kill you.
Right.
But it's not. It's kind of like, to me, even though I've heard it way more times than most people, I think it stands up. I think you can actually vacuum to it or bench press or something like that. So I think it might work out.
For sure. Well, we have a ton of awesome music and great questions for Curt. So let's get into our next track. This is Justin's pick. What do you got for us?
All right, so we are going to hear Extreme Vehemence, and that is off of our game of the day, Valfaris, which came out on everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and Steam.
Yep. So all of the current consoles as of 2020, 2019. This came out in 2019.
Yes, it did.
Composed by Curt Victor Bryant. Welcome back from that shredder of a track. That was Extreme Vehemence off of Valfaris, which came out in 2019 on the current consoles, composed by Curt Victor Bryant. What did you think?
The word vehemence is the display of strong feeling or passion, and you really get that in this track.
I thought you were about to read me a book report on the word vehemence. I was like, Webster Dictionary defines the word vehemence as...
excuse me, only the hardest of hardcore people use Merriam-Webster.
That's true.
Yeah. So the synth keys and the synth bass kind of remind me of the Terminator soundtrack in the beginning. I get like almost like a fight between the guitar and the synth, where like the basic rock beat kind of keeps them both at bay. Like what I pictured in my head was like a life-size like keyboard with like a monster teeth and like monster eyes, like kind of fighting with like a guitar that's like maybe like looking like a dinosaur or something, and they're like fighting together. I don't know, like that's what I pictured in my head. And then you've got like the swirling choruses that kind of come in there, a lot of like whoosh, whoosh, like kind of sounds, and all of that's there to introduce like new elements before the song kind of like balances out, and it has like a healthy mixture of like the synth keys playing like a haunting harmony that kind of sits really well on top of the guitars. So them's were my thoughts.
That's an incredible dissection.
Yeah man, it's almost as if I wrote it down.
I think I gotta hire you two guys for analyzing my songs, because you're right. Either I'm making this too easy, and I always try to put a monkey wrench into something, and maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just thinking I'm doing it difficult, and maybe it's just too obvious, Or you guys are just two geniuses that just figured it out, and you're hired.
Yes.
I'm just gonna call you guys from now on. They're like, oh, what do you think about this song? Oh, just call Justin and Mike. They'll tell you exactly what they can do it better than I do.
Sweet.
We'd be happy to do that. Mike is an incredible lover of all things metal.
Yes.
And I enjoy metal a lot as well, but not as much as this guy. I do a lot of like music theory and stuff, so I like digging into the music itself. Mm-hmm. So we are both really into everything you're doing here.
Yeah, both.
No, awesome. So that way you probably appreciate the things that, like you said, that they almost sound like, whoa, you're almost off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're not really, that kind of thing.
Right. Like so I grew up playing drums for middle school until like high school, and then like I kind of self-taught myself the set. And so like I don't own a drum set. I've never owned a drum set, but like if you give me a drum set, I'll play. Like I'm not great. Like it's not like I can run out and join a band anytime soon, but I guess I've been playing, air drums in my car for so many years that like I've actually gotten really good. Because when I sit down,
me both,
Yeah, it's like I'll sit down on the set, and then I'll be like, all right, let's do this. And people are like, do you play? And I'm like, yeah, I dabble. I dabble.
And that's the thing I'm trying to evoke with a lot of my tracks.
Yeah.
That even though you're not planning on it, or you weren't doing, all of a sudden you find yourself hitting that hi-hat and that snare, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that I'm already smiling. I'm like, I think about that, because I've seen guys doing it, people that always complain what I do, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what I do, it's just always never good enough. And then all of a sudden I see them like, playing air drums. I'm like, gotcha, that kind of thing. So isn't the air drums the greatest thing,
Oh, for sure.
I love it.
So let's talk a little bit about your history. When did you first start playing music or showing interest in music, and like in what way did you explore that?
Probably go all the way back. I grew up, I call myself a jukebox baby. Parents used to have like restaurants, so we had a jukebox back then, with 5-inch singles, I guess, a vinyl. So we would have the regular guys and the customers, and they would tell me, here, it was back in Switzerland, so it wasn't $1, it was Swiss franc, but here's Swiss franc, go play me D3 and X5, whatever, and the last song you can pick, that kind of stuff. So it was always cool. So I had kind of my little DJ machine right there to make music. And then at the end, whenever they swapped out the records, when I think it was like once a month or so, I don't really remember, but I would say at least once a month, maybe twice a month, when they came in to take out the cash out of the machine, but also check which records don't play at all. So they would swap those out, or which records played so much that they're all worn out, so they would replace them. So I would get those singles. I would get those 5-inch singles,
Ah.
and I would play them at home, in my room and all that kind of thing. And that's how I kind of got into music. First thing, I didn't know who Elvis was, but I had like these records that I totally dug the voice, and all that kind of stuff. Had the luxury growing up, and had a family that loved music too, and all that kind of stuff. But nothing. My sister gave for my 9th birthday. She gave me Dark Side of the Moon.
Pink Floyd. Okay.
Yeah.
And my sister's 7 years older than me.
Nice.
So I mean, what the heck is wrong with her? You know what I mean? And a 9-year-old doesn't like Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And I was like dying. I was like, whoa. You know what? Let me take that back. It wasn't a Dark Side of the Moon. It was Wish You Were Here.
Oh, Wish You Were
That's the one I
Here.
had.
That's
And
actually my
that
favorite
cover
Pink
with
Floyd
that
album.
Burning Man and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Fire on Fire.
Yeah,
And all
yeah.
that stuff. So that just drew me in, because obviously I was already knee deep in DC Comics then.
Sure.
The whole DC, that was my, that whole getting away from everybody. And
Right.
That was my family. So seeing like the sky on fire and everything, and then the music with the way it was, I got sucked in. And I remember going to school, oh yeah, I'm listening to Pink Floyd, knowing in the class, nobody would listen to it, and I knew, it's like, wow, I'm listening to adult music, that kind of thing. So getting sucked in with music, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, I was not interested in baby music. I was interested in like all of a sudden like that kind of stuff.
Right.
And first it was just like, oh, I'm pretending I'm a grown-up. That's why I like this kind of music.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it stuck with me.
At what point did you kind of transition? Because I mean, like going from Elvis to Pink Floyd, that's a pretty, I guess, somewhat natural progression. Because you've got the blues-oriented stuff mixed with like the
early rock and roll, like
into
classic rock.
Right. Which at the time wasn't classic. It was, it was like
rock.
I would even say like progressive. I don't know, Pink Floyd, kind of
prog-ish. Yeah.
Prog-ish, yeah, prog elements. So how did you move from that into, getting inspired from like heavy metal? Was it like Black Sabbath, or was it, those types of bands like Led Zeppelin?
Not Led Zeppelin, but definitely the band itself probably was Deep Purple.
Okay.
Because I got live in Japan, and because of Elvis, I want to start playing guitar, obviously, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I wanted to play guitar. So I just dabbled in, and everybody can play, Smoke on the Water. So I did it on one string, when I was like 10 years old.
Right.
And then, but for some reason, it did not let me go with that record. Because some of the songs are weird again for a 10-year-old, 11-year-old. On that live record, like Speed King and all that kind of thing. But I noticed that I kept listening, and then that got me into like the listening to an electric guitar, which then actually brought, again, not want to talk about Pink Floyd too much, but that brought me back understanding the guitar with Pink Floyd a lot more.
Okay.
So it was Richie Blackmore, that just completely fascinated me, because what he was playing did not make sense a lot of times.
Right.
And to this day, I'm not just talking about as a kid now. But we can fast forward on that.
Yeah.
So it was just like the Deep Purple really that got me into, the electric guitar, the heavier stuff and so on. But it was really Deep Purple by itself. There was some Black Sabbath, but back then I remember I didn't know it was Black Sabbath. I just heard a couple of songs, like the song Black Sabbath, and then there was also Paranoid. I didn't know it's the same band.
Oh wow.
So,
yeah, there's a bit of a difference between those two records.
But the song Black Sabbath and then of course War Pigs, that kind of sucked me in. I never did the whole category. Oh, this is metal, this is thing.
Right.
I mean, I grew up with ABBA. You know what I mean? I didn't know ABBA was not metal, because that kind of. So it was just like, oh wow, those are like heavy music and heavy, nice melodies, and sometimes you had the nice melodies in metal too. But then fast forward, I think that. For me, it was a very, very quick progression afterwards. And I would say it was around 11 to 12 years old, that kind of thing, maybe cracking onto 13.
Yeah.
And then it happened all together. It was Maiden with, obviously, the Number of the Beast.
Right, Number of the Beast.
And so I sucked that one in and went backwards from there. Then Judas Priest, it was the Screaming for Vengeance.
Right.
And then as soon as I soaked that one in, I went backwards. And then, of course, in Europe, we had the Accepts and those kind of bands.
Yeah.
So it all happened for me musically, metal-wise, all at once. Within, and then and I wanted to move faster and faster.
Yeah.
And from there, it went to Motorhead.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
So predominantly like the new wave of British heavy metal was.
I guess so, because I was right there when it happened.
Yeah.
But again, I did not know that it was
the new wave of British heavy metal.
Right,
Which
of
is
course.
why
They didn't. That was the name
But
that
then-
they coined, like a lot of writers coined during that era, like kind of like towards the end of it, or maybe like in the middle of it. But like when it was starting out, like nobody called it the new wave of British heavy metal.
Right.
It was just like, you know, a bunch of, you know, English and British metal bands and bands from all over Europe kind of bringing this new sound over, you know, even like Def Leppard back when they were still like heavy metal.
Sure.
And, you know, people just called it metal, like heavy metal.
Yeah.
Nobody called it like, you know.
Well, yeah, 'cause I mean,
all
what's harder
the
than rock?
little genres now, you know. It's
Right.
Exactly. It's rock and metal, you know.
Oh, it's insane how many subgenres
hard
of metal.
rock and heavy metal. That's I remember, you know, because I remember like having like my cute cousin friends over, you know, and female cute, correct?
Yeah.
And I remember they're like, hey, do you have someone? And I was like, what do you want to listen to? Hard rock like Crocus? Or you want to listen to heavy metal like Judas Priest?
Right.
I remember like saying that, like thinking I'm like a music professor now, you know, that kind of thing. And that's how that, you know, same thing with Crocus, you know, I mean, they came out of Switzerland, so naturally they were there. But yeah, I went fast from there. I mean, went Motorhead and then, you know, Possessed and Venom and all that stuff. But at the very beginning, I know I did not really like, but because I pissed off everybody else because nobody was listening to, you know, that more extreme metal. Again, there was no such term, but it was, you know, it was just more than a Judas Priest or something like that. But then because I was listening to it, I was not just saying I was listening, I was actually listening to it.
Yeah.
And then I got to understand more and more what they did. And then, you know, the more you understand, Venom all of a sudden wasn't that heavy anymore, you know. And then, of course, then we had this freaking strange brand that came out of Switzerland called Celtic Frost.
Yeah.
You know, that came out with their records. And I'm like, whoa, we got some crazy ones here now.
Yeah.
Oh, what are they doing? You know, so, and, you know, then all of a sudden I was in that band, you know. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's really it was small, like music history kind of thing, going all the way back. And especially in the 70s, if you go back 30 years, there was nothing there anymore. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
besides classical music, which, you know, I grew up obviously, you know, to like a lot too. You know, the Beethoven and the Wagners and all that kind of stuff. But when it came to the stuff you can actually hear on the jukebox, yeah, it was, you know, and as fast as possible up there and crazy, but not, it wasn't so much that it had to be fast. It was more like, give me something that freaks me out. What the heck are you doing? You know, that kind of stuff. And that's why I always like Richie Blackmore, because, you know, as commercial as he was with the Purple and Rainbow and all that kind of stuff, his soul is, and sometimes his riffs, I was like, whoa, you know. And of course with him came Dio, and Dio opened up a whole new thing to like, wow, maybe it's nice to have a singer that actually can sing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we go ahead and listen to my first pick on this one, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about Celtic Frost and your time with Celtic Frost. So this track is called Infectious Fear. Hey, welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was Infectious Fear, and that was off of the Valfaris soundtrack, our game of the episode. And we're going to talk to Curt, the composer, about it. So the song, what do you think of it, Justin?
It felt similar to the march that we opened on. Like it felt very like cut and dry and dun dun dun. Exactly. Right. It was very, very driven, and I think that's one of the things that I like the most about it, because like it's not the march, it's not the slow build. It comes in pretty strong and it stays strong throughout, and it even punches you in the face a couple times.
Curt was talking earlier about New Age, and I think that describes this track perfectly. It's a melding of New Age music with, you know, your traditional like really chuggy heavy metal track. You get those. The only thing I could call them were synth birds in the beginning. Those kind of tweedy, kind of like,
okay,
you know, and they sounded like birds, like synthetic birds for the intro, and it's very New Age sounding before the guitars come in, very chuggy, lots of various different like crash cymbals before it like levels out with some double bass kind of here and there, like doop 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 doop, like not just like your standard like, you know, not like that for, you know, how most double bass kind of sounds. So that kind of caught my ear, and then the chorus kind of starts coming in around the 2-minute mark, getting louder and louder, and then the track's just really rocking, but it ends with the synth birds coming back at the end, which was almost like it was telling a story, which was really cool. It's nice to hear music that kind of tells a story in a way. I'm trying to remember when this takes place in the game. I haven't finished the game. I feel like I'm like 75% done with it. Like I'm pretty far in. I'm at a part where there's these giant mechs that you get called exterminators.
I was just gonna not just going to, but I definitely wanted to make sure that we had something about these ride armor mech things,
right?
They are ridiculously awesome.
Oh, they're so cool. It's like if you took Mega Man X and you took the ride armor from Mega Man X and you just made it like straight up heavy metal. Like it just has like really awesome skull and glowing like blue eyes, and you know in the game you get 3 different types of attacks. You get your melee weapon, which is basically like
sword.
Yeah, like your main sword is like Therion's. Therion is your main hero, which we'll talk a little bit about Therion in a little bit throughout this episode, but he gets a sword called the Therion sword, and that's his like primary weapon. And then you also get a gun. It's like a standard like a blast, pistol. Like a plasma gun. Right, plasma rifle. And then you get like a heavy weapon, and that's like the big gun that you have like a blue energy bar for your heavy gun. The way that you refill that bar is you have to attack with your melee weapon.
Yep.
And what that does is that frees like almost like souls that you get, these like blue crystals or whatever, these blue like little energy things, and then you get those, and that refills your bar so that way you can use it more.
Yeah.
So when you get the exterminator, there's 2 different places so far in the game that you get the exterminator. I'm at the second part. It's almost as if like the exterminator emulates Therion's weapons in a way, because you still get a melee attack where you're like dashing into foes, and then you get like a blaster that like a flamethrower, like a blue flamethrower. So you get that as your main like blaster, and then your heavy weapon is like, it's like a pulse energy beam.
Like an EMP almost?
Yeah, almost, but it's like it keeps shooting.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's almost like a machine gun in a way, and that just decimates the foes. So,
and does that is that powered by?
And that's powered by
the
souls, right? And you refill the souls by killing enemies with a melee attack or whatever. So, I'm at the part where you have to abandon your exterminator to get to higher ground, so you can like open the gate. Because right now there's like a platform that won't drop until you like free it. So I'm stuck there, trying to get up there, but these like alien creatures are coming down and like just killing me. I've died so many times in the game. Like it's insane how many times I've died, but I'm having a blast with it. It's a really fun game. You'll really like this, but definitely prepare to die like a million times.
Yeah. Game is brutal on multiple levels.
It's brutal McNoodle. Yes. So this track, I believe, plays when you come above ground. You kind of start out above ground, and then you go underground, and you're in like the sewer and like this like, you know, really dingy, dirty like area or whatever, and then you kind of come back up, and you're above ground again, and you're trying to get, to a higher area. With this track, with the Infectious Fear, what was your thoughts on that one as far as like the new age kind of vibe that you were bringing?
And you got it right with the marching thing.
Okay.
This is almost like, if I would give him a different title to this song, it would be like the marching orders. And that's how I saw the whole thing, Okay. And so it's like, you envision like this massive army basically, and they're just like going, dun, 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 dun. They're just, nothing can stop them. So it's like, the rhythm a lot, I envision a massive amount of, war, or people that are about to go into war or start fighting, and that's how they walk, almost like militant type of thing, And that's basically how it is, It just got me this thing, and that's why it has this flow with the guitar, also like almost like a regular chugging to it, because I didn't want it to take away. It kind of meshed with the rhythm, but then you got your birds, and I hope the birds you hear, they're not just like the regular little birds, they're like futuristic, freaking crazy looking birds.
That's what I was thinking.
That's
definitely
exactly
what I was picturing.
I envisioned it. They go through like, you go like through a jungle, but it's not dense, it's like an open field jungle, which I know it doesn't make sense, but you got all those big birds and weird and all that kind of thing. So since it is like on a different planet, and we have spaceship involved, so I wanted to have it spacey yet still down to earth,
right,
with the marching thing, and that's basically how the whole thing came together.
I feel like if they made a third heavy metal movie, like this would be the sound. Like this would be a good soundtrack for
Have you seen Love, Death, and Robots?
I have not.
It's basically it's not really, but it's very much inspired by the heavy metal and whatnot.
Oh, cool.
It's a great show.
Yeah. But this, if they were making a new heavy metal movie and they happened to make a game for it, Valfaris would be the game, totally, for sure. Regarding your time in Celtic Frost, so just to kind of explain, Celtic Frost is a Swiss, they're called extreme metal or avant-garde metal, which again, there's just so many subgenres of metal. It's crazy, but like Celtic Frost started off in 84. So they inspired so many heavy metal bands like all throughout the 80s and 90s. So how in the world did you join Celtic Frost, and what was that like?
Right time, right place. Yeah, I really don't know. Just universe aligning and all that kind of thing.
For sure.
And happened. Obviously, I grew up with those guys. Listening, because they were a little older. They lived maybe 5 miles away, 10 miles away from where I grew up and all that stuff. So in the scene, which is non-existing in Switzerland, or back then, there was not really a music scene or a metal scene, but there was always something they called a heavy metal disco, like every other week. That it was one in one town, one the other, which was really just a bunker or some place where adults actually let some long-hair guys come in, or not so long-hair guys, just metal fans, and they knew we're not going to trash everything.
Right.
And I guess it became a little legendary or something, those places, and all of a sudden you have, bands like Celtic Frost show up, or Destruction, and, a bunch of bands all of a sudden showed up, just to show themselves, kind of like, hey, we're here too, better play our music and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how it happened. I just became friends with Steve Priestley, which was actually the original drummer in Celtic Frost on the first record, Morbid Tales. He played that one.
The whole point of being in a band, aside from being a creative outlet for band people to do, is to play music and to love music and share that appreciation with their fans. But at the same time, it's also a business in a lot of ways. So you want to, maybe try to put out some stuff that's a little bit more radio friendly, possibly. And I know a lot of bands are doing that. I feel like Celtic Frost kind of jumped on board with that to try to write music that would maybe be able to be played on the radio. And if I recall from what I've read, the albums that you were featured on was during that time. Is that right? When the band was okay, we're going to try this new style, try to do something a little more radio friendly. Is that right?
Yes, in terms of that's when I joined. It's not what we tried to do. It's just, again, it's in a nutshell, it's if you're any other band, and it might sound I want to cop out or not give all the thing, but if you're any other band, and during that time where everybody knew if you can get onto MTV,
and get on the radio, things will happen a lot better, especially if you're into metal, extreme metal, and all that stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Which, it was always called underground, basically. You know what I mean? So things will happen on a bigger scale if you obviously jump onto MTV and all that stuff, which was just happening for MTV itself during that time.
Oh, yeah.
We can never forget that. We always think about MTV was always there. No, MTV almost didn't happen. And when it happened, almost didn't happen either. And then all of a sudden they started to grow. So we all kind of grew with that medium and, the radio stations. But I just to come back to the record, and of course that's that infamous record that everybody says was a sellout because we wanted to be hair metal and all that stuff. First of all, and I'm just going to say now, because down the road there will be some more revelation to it, because if there's some Celtic Frost fans listening to it, they probably know. And I get that a lot on Facebook. I get a lot of messages. Hey, how come we never hear your side?
Right.
It's really a one-sided story.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm like, well, let it be time and place, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
you'll get the answer why there was an open pants and all that stuff, which of course was not supposed to be on the record in the first place. But coming back to the thing, yes, any other band, I would say, that said, hey, let's make something commercial so we can get onto MTV, that would have been the thing. If you're Celtic Frost, you can't do that, because it's like a 180 and all that. So we just did, as Celtic Frost always did, we just did what we wanted to do.
Sure.
And it just happened, we were falling into that thing. And of course, it had that song that all of a sudden played us on MTV,
right,
which totally changed everything. I mean, we went from 95% guys in leather jacket.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we had, girls dressed in red mini skirts and all
sure.
that. Like, whoa,
the girls came a-running. Exactly.
What happened?
Yeah.
But a band like Celtic Frost, it's impossible to get on there. It was just freak of nature.
Oh,
and
sure.
it just happened. People like that song and the radio station and all that stuff. It was more like, let's see how much more we can piss off people, and let's try something with that thing. Whatever happened afterwards happened way before. I did not join Celtic Frost for being all of a sudden the way we looked down there. By the way, I joined as a bass player because the bass player left, and I was always a guitar player.
Right.
But when they asked me, it was a no-brainer. I'm like, I played a triangle. I'll let you get let's get in there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, and again, we can totally bring that back to Valfaris, to the music. Not one track, and I can say that wholeheartedly, not one track is designed. You know, there's maybe one track, and one of you guys has it on there, that I did something just on purpose, just because some people were complaining, how come you never do certain thing? But we'll talk about it when we get to it.
Cool.
Nice.
I'll let you know.
Well, why don't we move into Justin's next picks? What do you got for us?
Yeah, good segue. So next up, we're going to hear Curator of Dark Souls.
All right, let's do it.
welcome back. That was Curator of Dark Souls.
That was a heavy one.
It was definitely heavy. I mean, everything in this game is heavy. I feel like it's probably one of the lighter tracks. One of the reasons that I picked this one is some of the, I don't know what I'd call them, maybe orchestral elements, but it's not just like the strings that are in there, but also like the chorus that's in there and stuff like that. I don't know that it really lightens the track per se, but I mean, when you compare it to like the chugging guitars and the bass and the crazy drums that a lot of the other tracks have, I don't know, to me, there's a little lightness to it that is really interesting. Like, I'm curious as to what part of the game, do you know what part of the game this
I don't remember, no. It
feels to me like it would be like an option screen or something like that.
Most of the game soundtrack, and this isn't to take away from it, of course, but it feels like an experience.
Yeah.
So because of that, it tends to all kind of roll together. But
that's a good point.
There's a few tracks that stand out just because I've played them so many times, and I'm like, oh, that, you know, like when we listen to the boss music, like that's one of those tracks, and I'm like, this totally stands out because I've had to hear it 1,000 times because I just keep getting my butt kicked.
I was gonna say,
but I couldn't help but really enjoy the double bass drums.
Yeah,
just really frantic and well played. Now, I guess that kind of leads me to a follow-up question. I kind of pick up from where our previous conversation left off, but I was curious, what equipment did you use to compose Valfaris? Like, both physical, meaning like the equipment, like the guitars, the you know, that sort of stuff, and also what kind of like digital tools, software did you use to compose this soundtrack?
The regular to go to from Pro Tools. It depends what studio, because I'm not trying to sound cocky, but I had the luxury to do, and I wanted to really let it free flow. So certain things I knew from previous studios I worked with. So again, I mentioned that studio, it's called Gaga Studio in Hamburg. That has just has a $1 million SSL board in there and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just for certain sounds that I wanted, especially some of the tunes. I think you didn't mention, but some of the stuff that almost sound like Middle Eastern or something like that, like have like a little bit of Indian, instrument, and I take in some other stuff. So I had a lot of fun recording those there. And again, sometimes it's really not necessary. I could have recorded it in my basement, basically.
Right.
But sometimes I just get the kick out of it of if I can do it, why not? That kind of stuff. So coming back to the VSTs, I mean, it's the regular thing that anybody could have. The Pro Tools, the Cubases, recorded on Logic. So nothing encrypted, nothing that nobody would know how to do it. It's what's out there.
Right.
Guitar-wise, if you ask me, my trusted soldiers that I just got, my Charvels, my Jacksons. Sometimes I experiment. I even brought in a Parker. It's really not a metal guitar at all, but for whatever reason, with strange tuning and bending that I do sometimes, it worked really well in terms of holding the strings longer than other ones without bursting every other take. That kind of thing. So it was, again, freedom and just pick and choose what I wanted to do. And nothing interesting really. Anybody can do it with the stuff out there.
So you did guitars and you did bass as far as the actual hardware?
You mean like when it comes to the instruments?
Yeah.
I played it all. I played everything but the drums, except when I programmed.
Right.
Right now.
So getting back to Celtic Frost and kind of what... how you ended up, afterwards, you're following into music outside of Celtic Frost. What led to the end of your time in Celtic Frost, and what did you do in between composing for Slain? Like, what were you doing musically? Well,
there was nothing really an end for me for Celtic Frost. It was just, again, we never even broke up either. I was living in the States. The other band, part of the members, went back to Switzerland, did something over there. But it was never, we just never got back together until the new reunion happened in whenever that was, in 2006 or 8 or something like that.
Okay.
Bringing back Martin A. and Tom, when they did kind of like the original thing, and I understand why he went that way. Originally we talked about, even me, Tom, and Reed being that part, but then it's just, I have my life over here with all the music. I owned a couple of records. During that time I owned a couple of record companies down in Miami, because I did the classic rock with
Edgar Winter, Robert Palmer, Doobie Brothers,
cool.
Earth, Wind and Fire, you name it, that kind of stuff. Again, we're talking mid, the 2000s, the 2000s until which metal was just hard, it was just, and that's also a reason why I got a lot of those legendary bands during that time, because during that time, a lot of that stuff that was from before fell into that has-been type of thing, but then all of a sudden, because they survived long enough, became legendary afterwards.
Right.
So yeah, that was it, and I was just doing a lot of stuff behind the thing. I had a band right afterwards because I just still had that. I needed let metal out of me. I had a band called The Doomsday, which I had a lot of fun with. But coming off, Celtic Frost, being on tour around the world with seasoned touring, recording musicians, and not just the craft with their instruments, but also knowing what's going on in the music industry. Where a lot of bands or artists that haven't made it out there to experience all the crap that comes along with it. Yeah, you can't explain it. There's just nothing you can explain, because it's always overshadowed by, but how is it playing in front of all those people? How much, all that stuff. But the suffering you have to do in order to do that, even if you explain it to them, it doesn't mean anything. And I understand, I was on that side. Sure. It was just, you only see the glamour and the glory, you don't see the thing. And then obviously when I was in there, so having a brand new band, and it was me and 3 other guys that again were, and I mean it with all due respect, I just said the local yokos, that kind of thing, that just and they could have made it, big and all that stuff. But it was too hard for me to do the whole explanation thing. I didn't want to explain and all that stuff. Plus, it was still like, we're talking 94, 95. Right. Where, if you were not from Seattle, if you weren't wearing a flannel or something like that, and just standing still on stage and looking down to your shoelaces. Right. Well, that was not me. I'm on there breaking thousands of dollars guitars on stage. Not because it was a show thing. It was just that came over me, and I'm like, wow. Go for it,
When you were writing this music, knowing that you had that long-term fan base with Celtic Frost, do you think any of that kind of rubbed off on the music that you were working on for Valfaris, or did you want to treat it like its own separate entity and be like, nope, I'm not going to make this sound like Celtic Frost or anything that came before me or after me? When it came to Celtic Frost, I just wanted to do like my own thing.
Well, first of all, you give me way too much credit. It's just me. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's why I said earlier, I believe metal. Yes, I do soundtracks. I write cute poppy songs and all that kind of stuff. And of course, a bunch of metal fans are probably cringing right now. They're like, he said what? Yeah. Just say that, right?
A music aficionado. That's the thing. It's music. It should always be music first, not necessarily genre.
Yeah, I don't give a rat. Hey, if somebody asked me once, so where would you cater? I said that, and I told him, I said, look, I have no clue. Right. And I said it a little more with adult language. I said, look, I have really no clue. You tell me what genre. I don't know. I barely can tune my guitar, and I'm just happy that I can make something that at the end I can close my eyes and it's almost like a soundtrack. Right. And I'm happy with that. So again, yes, of course, because of the experience, I bring something to the table and all that stuff. But that's also why you don't hear me noodling through all the tracks. Right. I had a lot of criticism. The people that were just superficial, they're like, how come you don't play any solos? I didn't want to.
Right. It didn't call for that, right?
All, and they didn't call for that. And again, this is not my solo record. This is not Curt Victor Bryant. This is I am helping a visual to make to get you more into the. If the game alone doesn't give you that extra energy to press those buttons extra fast and extra, I hope the music will lend to it, that kind of thing. And if it doesn't do it, well, good thing you can mute the music and you can just take the sound effects. Right. Again, it's not the Curt Victor Bryant project. I don't know if something sounds like Celtic Frost, it's because that's me. If it doesn't, it's just because I was so free doing those things, and I'm not afraid. I don't care if somebody doesn't like my stuff. I've already done it, that kind of thing. So that freedom, it's just beautiful.
All right, so let's move into my next pick for this Valfaris soundtrack, and it is a song called Cosmic Decay. my neck. That was Cosmic Decay off of the Valfaris soundtrack. And we are talking still with our composer of this game, Valfaris, Curt Victor Bryant. That was amazing. That was so good.
Yeah, I think you need to give me a minute. There's a fly or something in here, and I need to find it and kill it.
Yeah.
Maybe a few of them.
So this takes place. This I definitely remember. This song, because it takes place during. So you enter into this like hive, if you will, and you've got creepy crawly bugs all over the place that you got to take out. There's like nests and different stuff that you got to like blow up to kill stuff. And again, we talked a little bit about the graphics here, but you really have to visually see this game in motion. It took the world of the heavy metal magazines with the the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of vibe that they kind of glorify, and it kind of like turns up the neon. It turns up the 80s aesthetic a little bit. Even like your main character, Therian. He's got this red battle armor on, and he's got long, kind of like bluish looking hair, and he just looks like a tough dude. Definitely kind of reminded me a little bit of the singer from the long, passed away singer from Typo Negative, Peter Steele.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, he looks like if you put Peter Steele in body armor.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
For a second, I seriously thought that there was a fly in the room, because I've been playing this while my wife is watching like The Crown or whatever like TV show she's currently watching on Netflix or whatever, and here I am sitting here playing this on the Switch and just like decimating foes while like wanting to headbang so bad in while I'm sitting in bed with my wife, like taking every moment to just kind of soak in the metal from this track. I love that chuggy like that's such an awesome riff.
Yeah.
And when you couple that with those synths and the choir that kind of come in, it all kind of like melds together into this like really awesome like metal journey. It's got its moments of thrash, it's got its moments of doom metal, it's got its moments of symphonic metal, it's got its moments of groove metal. You know what I mean? So it's got all these different components of heavy metal from all these subgenres kind of like merged together into this, and even punk too. This track has a little bit of a punk vibe too. The fly sound effects, I gotta ask, were those added in intentionally into the song, or was it like those were sound effects that they had in the game and you were like, oh, I'm gonna use those for the soundtrack release?
No, there was no game yet. I mean, they were working on it.
Sure.
First, that's actually the very first song I presented to the guys that do develop the game.
Okay.
All I got, obviously, from the previous game, I knew that it's going up in space and all that thing. So the first thing I got, and I think they used it for a trailer also, where and it's in the very beginning, where that spaceship comes in and it lands, and basically that's what I got. A little bit on the outside where you see the words in space and that kind of thing, where the typing goes on, and then you see the ship come down crashing, and I believe he comes out of the thing or not.
That's how he lands. That's how he lands in the game. You crash land onto the planet.
Yep.
And
that's the very first thing that they gave me. It's like, look, this is what it's going to be. So it's away from the other one, but yes, it's still kind of related. It's a continuous saga. The flies, they came in afterwards.
Okay.
The choir, I didn't have that one either because the drums and the guitars are so heavy. I'm like, let me get rid of that. Because the melodies I like nice melodies.
Yeah.
Again, I know some people are gonna be like, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to like, no.
Yeah.
Beautiful melodies.
No, I love melody.
Melodies
I'm all about melody and harmony.
Scary too. Yeah. And beautiful. Beautiful can be very scary. That kind of, like I always refer to like horror movies. When things get too pretty and all that stuff, it's like, oh shit. It's probably more scary than if somebody is a little weird. That kind of stuff.
Those synths are definitely like very melodic, very haunting as well.
Really, I'm about to send you probably flowers for Valentine's Day because all the compliments you're sending me, it's like, but I'm like, wow. And you're reminding me of things that I hoped I could achieve, but I already forgot about it because, don't forget, I did this music pretty much a while back now,
Right.
Well, I finished the last couple of songs probably like a couple of months before the game then came out.
Oh, okay. So you're working on like 2018 to 2019, pretty much?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So very nice and refreshing, especially hearing your comments. And I'm like, wow, it actually worked. You know what I mean? And I know coming off Slain, this was completely different. And it's the very first track I sent them. And yeah, it wasn't receptive. They thought it was utter crap, so. And I'm like, I'm not so sure about my music all the time, but I knew this is going to work.
Right.
And I also told him, I said, look, this is not, all the songs are not going to be like this.
Right.
That I didn't even show them, I'm like,
right.
I look forward playing the song live one of these days.
Nice.
This song would actually, because it's one of my favorite tracks too to listen to, because I'm envisioning, because there's so much work in it to play it. It'll probably need a little oxygen tank afterwards, right after the tune,
right?
And that's what I look for. So if I ever play live those kind of songs, that will be definitely one I would look forward to, because it's a difficult one.
Right.
Usually I have you give me a greeting card, it will take me 900 hours, 900 days to give you some kind of dedication or note or something like that.
Right.
But even song titles too, I have the hardest, even though these ones are a little easier because there's no lyrics to it.
Yeah. That's true.
But even then, I have the hardest time getting where I can identify the song with the title. But this one I had right away, because it's he's cosmic coming out of space, he's landing, it's probably like weird freaking gigantor flies or things that fly around.
Yeah.
And so I had the cosmic decay.
Very cool. All right, Justin, what do you have next up for us?
So next up, we're going to hear Settlement of Rays from Valfaris. Welcome back to XVGM Radio. That was Settlement of Rays from Valfaris from Curt Victor Bryant. We were talking during the break, and Mike was comparing this to, I think you said sludge metal?
Sludge metal.
Yeah.
There is such a thing called sludge metal. Those guitars, they sound like almost like they're growling.
Yep.
And I really think the ride cymbal fits really perfect with this type of track. Like really just sludge metal, like just slow. It's a variation of doom metal kind of mixed with hardcore punk. Mm-hmm. Doom metal is more in line with kind of like a variation of what like Black Sabbath did, like the really early like Black Sabbath stuff.
Yeah.
From their first, like probably just the first record. It's essentially sludge metal is like they took doom metal and just like threw it in the mud instead of like, you know, threw it in the grave.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I was saying that there are bits and pieces of this track that remind me of some stuff that I like by Black Sabbath.
Right. So that makes sense.
It all kind of rolls in there.
It all connects, Justin. So Curt actually said he has a funny story in regards to this song and its composition. So yeah, fill us in.
Even the title, like I said, usually takes a long time. This one was an easy one too. It's a Settlement of Rays. This is really a song about me and a very cute dog that was. It was more like a hellhound at a Mexican border control. Well, it wasn't a Mexican border control. It was the United States border control, like for me going down to, you know, Laredo, that kind of thing. Even though if you don't cross, if you head back north, there is after like 10 miles or so leaving Laredo.
Okay.
But even if you never really cross the border, even if you just go to Laredo when you head back, there is a border control. And I've never had, you know, I grew up with dogs, even friends or not so friends that have scary dogs. For whatever reason, they lay down and then show me their bellies and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I must be like some kind of scary dog whisperer or something. So I never fear a dog. So I was just like one of these days where I was just heading back, border control coming up, no big deal. I'm lowering I already know how to do it. Lower every window there is, turn on all the lights, make those guys very comfortable.
For sure.
You know, show my, you know, passport and all that stuff, just to show them, hey, look, it's all cool. And that dog just goes. So when you listen to the guitar, you know, the way I was playing the guitar, the strings, I'm almost too late coming back because I'm hitting the strings so hard that it makes it almost hard to come back on time.
Right.
So that's why that. So, but the dog literally goes to me like, I don't know, there must have been something wrong with his vocal cords or something like that, because it almost had like an octave in there in his bark. So it was just like, it was just like. So when I looked at the dog going wild and crazy, I wasn't even thinking about the border control guy thinking, yeah, we might need to check out this dude. I saw that dog as a three-headed, like a hydra.
Like a Cerberus, right?
Like saliva coming out and all three go like. So that's that one ray, right? He's one of the rays. So now here comes me with all the other thing going like, hey, I'm not really that scary, you know, don't worry about me,
right,
that kind of thing. And then when he goes into that heavy part where he said, oh yeah, that's the part I remembered why I picked this song. That's me like finally not so being nice anymore to the dog.
Right.
Saying like, look, I don't freaking think so. I'm not the guy you're supposed to bark at. There's nothing to bark at here, and get the heck out of me. You know? But naturally the border control guy had to. He's like, do you mind if I get out of the car, you know? And then, you know, they opened up the trunk, the dog got inside, spun around like you would not believe, you know. And I had a friend of mine with me. Yeah. And he looks at me, he's like, really?
He's like,
I'm going to be in Mexican jail until Monday? And I'm like, well, first of all, we're in the United States. We're not going to Mexico jail.
Yeah.
Second of all, there is nothing that dog's going to find.
Right.
I have no clue what he's going to find. Because I'm not.
It's either one of two things. It's either drugs or steak.
I know there's no drugs.
So I'm like, and even the guy, you know, and the guy, I guess the border controls guys, they saw that I was just like, you know, as relaxed as you can be, right?
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, the dog came out and just walked away, being all nice. That's why it just ends right there.
That's it. He just wanted to give you a really good riff, man.
Yeah, he just went from running around in the hole, sniffing everything, to jumping out, being like, okay, next.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I just like the song. And then I asked the border control, I said, so what did he find? Nothing. He probably was just like, playing around with you.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, see you later, bye.
He just wanted to give you a good riff. That's it.
He was like, this guy needs...
This guy needs a good riff
Needs a good
for
metal
Valfaris.
riff. Let me
Right.
bark it out.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to send him some royalties or something like that.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Little
Steak. So Valfaris is loaded with references to other heavy metal bands. So there's a reference to the band Machine Head, which is one of my favorites. So Therian has... he's the main character, and he has this energy babe. That's the only way I could explain it. It's like this green, almost like Cortana from Halo, and she's hanging out with him, and basically she kind of gives him information like, oh, you can upgrade your weapons, you could do this, you could do that. There's these different crystals that you can collect in the game called blood metals, and you can get those, and those upgrade your weapons. And I mean, even finding a weapon is like a heavy metal experience. Like you find a weapon in like a tank or something, this green tank behind you, and as soon as Therian breaks it open, he just starts headbanging, and on the screen it says you got this weapon or whatever. So you could upgrade the weapons, you could change weapons when you get to certain save points, and you have to use these green save crystals. I'm not sure if they're referencing the band Machine Head or possibly Deep Purple's album Machine Head, but they say, like, she's talking to him, and then I think he comes across, like, an enemy or whatever, and he's just like, something Machine Head or whatever. So there's that reference, and then there's, of course, referencing Celtic Frost, the main character, Therian, is a callback to Celtic Frost's album Megatherian. So it's obviously safe to assume that the developers at Steel Mantis, I'm assuming, are metalheads. There's also a secondary developer listed under the name Stage Clear Studios, which we kind of briefly mentioned. But so to get to the question, can you tell us your working relationship with Steel Mantis and how you met these guys, or how you started working with them, and like what the process involves for composing for games like Slain and Valfaris? Like, was it the same process for both games, or was it different, and how did that all come about for you working for them?
How I got to them, it was just through a mutual friend.
Okay.
That then he knew me, he knew them, and he thought it was a good mix, and we got together. Andrew, the main guy, basically designs and draws the game, and definitely metalhead. It's always nice. He's from England. He lives in Texas. And that's how Boring Story, just by chance again with me by chance, and it was a good match. Yeah, that's how I like to work. Let me do my stuff. I mean, give me your input. I'm more than happy, but let me do my thing. If you don't like it, I will not be butthurt.
Right.
I'll move on. I'll do the next thing. And as a matter of fact, I appreciate if somebody tells me, whatever you do, do not this. This sucks.
Yeah.
Or, it may not suck, but it's not the right thing.
Right.
So that way I know not to do that anymore.
All right. I think it's about time we melt some faces. What do you think, Justin?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to hear a really fast, heavy track. This is the boss theme. It's called Mass Upheaval by, again, Curt Victor Bryant off the Valfaris soundtrack. Well, you could send your hospital bills for your neck breaking to Steel Mantis, the developer. That was Mass Upheaval, the boss music from our game of the day, Valfaris. And we are back with Curt Victor Bryant, the composer. Oh my goodness.
Fun track, right?
I
It's
was
a lot of fun.
banging my head to that one.
Yeah, you don't know if you want to rip your face off, I mean, the flesh of your skull, or dance around like an Oompa Loompa or something like that. Yeah. It's like, because it has a bum, 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 bum. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to smile completely, like being happy, or just like rip all the flesh off.
Oh, it's definitely that when the rhythm comes in with the tick 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 tick. That's that with combined with the drums. I mean, that's just, and then when it slows up a little bit, dun tick dun dun tick dun. That right there is my bread and butter, man. Just metal all the way. This is the type of music I listen to, like, pretty frequently. So I was definitely. I did it
on purpose. I wanted to, because it's kind of like a 180 to some of the other ones, and I wanted to keep them rare like that. But it just fit, and I kept them short and just in and out, and it was a lot of fun. Another one I would love to play live, just because it's just it sounds like a fun track.
Oh, for sure.
Like it is a fun track to listen.
Oh, absolutely. It's a total banger. It's so good.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah. Just face melted, dead on the floor. Awesome. So, love it. This is the song you get in the circle pit for.
Yes.
Right?
Because it has that beginning that's kind of weird, it has like those weird notes on the guitar, which are kind of like a little bluesy almost. It's like that thing. It's actually a note that I always use if I jam around blues, like slow blues tunes.
Right.
And I was like, let me, see how that one sounds like. And it's like, whirr, and then all of a sudden it's like,
it's like almost close to like a natural harmonic almost, but like not. It's like a blues harmonic in a way.
Then it stops. It gives you that little pause.
That's what I love.
That's let me go for it. That puts a lot of smile on my face. That song.
That's the moment when you're at like the Lamb of God show, and like you've got the two sides of the. It's not even a circle pit. It's just like they call it like the wall of death.
Yeah,
and it's basically it's like. If you've ever seen Braveheart, the movie, it's like that. There's one side with William Wallace and his crew, and then you've got the other side with like the British, and it's just like when that note drops in, done, and that's when the wall of death forms, and it's just chaos and insanity. And like you try to explain something like that to a non-metal fan, and they look at you like, why would you want to do that? And you're like, it's just it's funny because I've had conversations with friends of mine that don't listen to metal, and they're like, why? Like, I just don't get it. What's with the screaming? What's with the anger? What's with the and it's just it's such a release.
I was gonna say, it's all about getting it out.
Right? Like you got aggression, or you got anxiety, or you just there's some people that get anxiety and they get sad or they get depressed or whatever, and they don't have any kind of outlet. And like for me at least, like anytime I feel like that, I just flip on some metal and just like jam out, and it makes you feel better. Yeah. And it's like the best medicine for some people. So
I think so too. I mean, look at there's just a big study that came out. Basically, the metalheads are all grown up now, right? I mean, from back then, right? When metal was really like, oh, this is your son listens to metal, he's never gonna evolve to something, and he's probably just gonna end up dead or in jail. The whole cliche thing,
right?
For
sure.
And of course, now all the metalheads are doctors and CEOs. Not all of them, but you know what I mean. We're all actually not the bad guys.
Right.
We actually came out to a functional citizens that can, go to work, enjoy life.
Oh, for
later,
sure.
Same thing with comics, you know what I mean? 400 years later, and adults are still gung-ho about the whole thing, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry and all that stuff. I'm like, hold on a second. How come we knew and those people didn't, that kind of thing? We're not the ones going out there murdering people. They're usually completely different music genre they're listening to. We're exhausted afterwards, that kind of things. Like, like you said, like if a Lamb of God, I'm not being pumped up afterwards. I'm not,
I just want to take a nap. I want to do the wall of death, and then I want to take a nap and eat like like a
cheese sandwich.
Cheese sandwich? No, not a cheese sandwich. You don't go to the wall of death and then eat a cheese sandwich, Justin. Come on, cheese sandwich? No. I mean, even Taco Bell's a better answer than that. Come on, Justin. God.
Almost had you.
This guy.
I think I got to come up there, wherever you guys are. Where is it? In Connecticut, right?
Connecticut, yeah.
I got to bring y'all some good Mexican food.
Please.
Tex-Mex from down here.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
We will feast.
That whole, I mean, I have nothing against Taco Bell, but just don't say Mexican food and Taco Bell in the same.
So, let's get into our next track, and then we'll start talking a little bit about your history with video games in general. And we've got some other really cool, wacky questions to ask as well. So, Justin, what is your next track?
So, my next track is going to be Chronic Dissolution.
All right, let's listen to it.
back, everybody. That was Chronic Dissolution.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Justin, Curt wants to know why you picked that track.
I feel the heat right now. So the reason that I picked this one is it felt very different to me. So I feel like the track kind of fools you in the beginning, but it doesn't fool you. So it doesn't feel like it starts off like any of the tracks on this entire album. Like you've got this very like almost ethereal-ish, very flowy thing going on, and it's like, wow, like, so everything here has been like super heavy, whether it's been like sludge metal or doom metal or whatever we're pulling from, and then this just kind of slaps you in the face with something completely different, and I kind of get into it and I kind of start flowing with it, and then the metal kicks in and the flow doesn't break, and I'm just like, it took me in a direction that I did not expect.
This one, it starts off with those Middle Eastern vocals, and then you get some really interesting, like, the only thing I could describe it as is like worldly instruments that kind of come in. I'm assuming that they're also like kind of Middle Eastern flowy, and then that's when the heavy comes. Then you got the lead synth that kind of backs up the guitars as the double bass drumming also starts up as well. Also kind of like a sludgy track a little bit.
Yeah, it's
with the riff,
slow.
the shun dun 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 dun. Yeah, so I'm more curious about what those instruments were like right after the Middle Eastern like style vocals kicked in. I got a real desert vibe from this one, but I don't recall being in a desert in the game. So I don't know, you'll have to fill us in on this one, Curt.
Yeah, well, I know what you're saying, and hence the title, Chronic Dissolution, because that was one of the songs that I actually fought not to have on there. And because, lack of better terms, I would say this is my least favorite song
Really?
that I did.
Okay.
But everybody else liked it like crazy. Like, you know, and now I'm like, well, hold on a second. Maybe I just don't. And again, you know, usually people like whatever they do. And I usually go the other way around. I'm very self-critical and all that. It's like, oh, yeah, did I go too far and all that kind of thing, without trying to overanalyzing either, because again, that's why I'm doing letting it flow. So if you let it flow, you cannot go afterwards, well, you should have. No, that's when you design something, then when you should have. But if you let it flow, if you let your energy come out and all the things.
Very
but you know,
cool.
you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You know, if you chisel, if you know exactly what I don't, I let it totally flow. That's why I say this is very organic. This is pure and honest, because nothing else was designed. So this one was the one, you know, you have your favorite kid and the one that's not your favorite kid. That doesn't mean you don't love that not so favorite kid, but you know, it's the same. But and that was the one that I had the most. I'm like, nah. And that's why the title, I'm like, it's a Dissolution. I'm like, but people liked it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And they, oh, we can use it here. And I'm like, but what about, it seems so repetitive to me.
Yeah.
And they're like, yes, but because you're breaking it off all of a sudden and you're starting with this Middle Eastern thing that's not Middle Eastern, and it feels like desert, and we're never going to be in the desert.
Yeah.
So it's perfect. I'm like, okay. Hey, happy thoughts, fine with me, you know what I mean? If everybody spits fire, then I'm like, okay, we'll let it go, you know?
Yeah.
So there was more happiness to it, and so I'm like, hey, if your guy's happy with it, I'm happy with it, you know, that kind of thing. So it wasn't like, no, this one sucks. It was just like,
Right.
I think I can get you something else. No, this is the one we want, you know? Well, okay. So on the instruments, yeah, and again, it was not like some of the other songs I have. I don't know, you know, the Legion of the Masquerade, and then there's like another one, the Heart of the Masked Twin, which have a very Middle Eastern feel to it. But it's just because I wanted to get away from regular 4x4 beat.
Right,
that
right,
kind of
right.
thing. And in that area of the world, they just mastered it beyond. I don't know how they come up with that. And that's where I got, you know, a little bit, and it's separated from all the other ones, but I like that whole, the rhythmy and the instruments, they play against each other, but yet it's unified, and it's like curry, you know.
Yeah.
Like curry is so delicious, but it's made out of 50 different spices, and just, if you just do 49 of those spices, it's probably disgusting. The 50th one matters.
Right.
Well, which one is the 50th one? It could be the first one. You know, it's that whole mix, and at the end it works out, and you just go like hallelujah.
So if a developer approached you with the idea to do a soundtrack for a game, let's say a company wanted you to do a soundtrack for a game that wasn't metal influenced, do you have something else that you'd like to try that you're like, oh, I've always wanted to do like this?
I always like to be challenged, and I have done it. There's a couple of games actually I did. Some of them were just little happy where it needed almost like elevator music.
Okay.
And then some other ones were some cutesy little creatures, going after, like a Pac-Man style type of thing, where I would do like a bang, 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 almost like the old days type of thing, where you had the 8-bit. The 8-bit sounds and all that kind of stuff. I've done those, and there's also for the virtual reality that I'm working on right now. It's called sorry, I blanked out. I forgot the name.
No worries.
It's like a virtual reality. It's like a type of horror thingy where you're the person going around. And it's totally different. Yeah. It's more austere. It's more no guitars. That kind of thing. It's more like Blade Runner-ish, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. Ooh. That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
And actually, one of the movies I'm working on that probably going to start shot mid-year or something like that. The soundtrack will be very like a Blade Runner-ish type sound. But again, when I say Blade Runner, it's never going to sound like Blade Runner.
Right.
It's going to sound Curt Victor Bryant did something like that, which is who knows what the heck is going to come out.
Right.
Maybe that's going to be my my new age record or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not stuck. I love if it's good, I like it. I'm not stuck with metal. It's just metal is so much fun.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And that's the staccatos are fun. Sometimes people are like, what's with that E string? You know what I mean? I'm like, I love it. If I could marry it, I would marry it. That's my perfect wife. That E string, you know what I mean? That first one, because it can handle my brute force coming down. So I love that one. It's like,
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna play my next track, which is Metanoia. I get like a Latin vibe from that name, Metanoia. I don't know.
I feel like it's just a portmanteau of metal and paranoia.
Oh, there you go. See, this is why we pay you the big bucks here on XVGM Radio. All right, so yeah, this is Metanoia on Valfaris' soundtrack. Oh man, welcome back. That was Metanoia, and we actually figured out what that is. So Curt actually found the word. It is a change in one's way of life resulting from penitence or spiritual conversion. It's a Greek word meaning change of mind. You were saying that you believe that this was the end theme or the credits theme. Is that right?
Yes, I believe so. It's credit or at the very end, but the revelation comes of the whole game. So,
yeah, I haven't gotten to the end yet, so that's why this one didn't sound familiar. But I picked it because I really liked it, and I love the double harmony with the the dual guitars with the different octaves. I love that stuff. Any kind of harmonizing of dual guitars is just like, the Thin Lizzy, Iron Maiden. Yep. That whole thing, that's my bread and butter right there. So this was a really chill track. Metal doesn't have to necessarily be always super heavy and always fast and grindy and chuggy. I mean, this was definitely chuggy, but it had like a ballad vibe.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, this didn't feel aggressive like some of the other stuff does. It felt more like you said, like a ballad. Yeah. Which, once we heard that this is something that plays near the end, it makes a whole lot more sense.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Beat the final. To me, this feels like you've beaten the final boss.
You beat the game, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently
there's no fighting going on. I'm pretty sure during this.
Yeah.
During this one.
That makes sense.
And this was a little bit, even though I said always it's all organic. It's definitely organic too, but I always got criticized before on the Slain Back from Hell. They're like, why are you not playing any leads? And, la la la. And especially, some of those other games out there that have maybe a metal thing to it.
Yeah.
It's all full-on leads nonstop.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just like them showing off, look what I can do, or trying to prove themselves and so on. And by no means and now obviously from all those tracks, anybody these days could play, maybe not so much compose, but play it, learn how to play it.
Yeah.
You don't need 40 fingers to play what I play. But at the same time, to figure it out. There's a funny thing that I saw when Beavis and Butthead came out first, and Mike Judge went on to David Letterman.
Oh, yeah. And I've seen that, actually.
I don't know if you remember that thing. The first thing David Letterman goes like, what's the, he's imitating Beavis or Butthead.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, what's the deal with this? Anybody can do this. Why is it such a hit? Anybody can do that, going,
Yeah.
And then Mike Judge looks at him and says, yeah, but I invented it.
Right.
I came up with it.
Yeah.
And I remember that. I was like, wow, that was almost like oh yeah, he's right. It's not hard what he did, but nobody did it before him.
Right.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing. And this was the thing where I'm like, there's no leads anywhere. And not in Slain, none in Valfaris. And at the last one, I'm like, if I make a one that's pretty, so to speak, because I as with all the other tunes, I try to bring in some kind of nice melodies here and there.
Right.
But on this one, I'm like, let me do the lead just because they were complaining. Not so much, hey, we want it, but now I'm doing it just because I didn't have to do it. I could have just left it completely, but I'm like, let me do it, and let me make it just pretty as it can be without being, like too sticky. I didn't want it too sticky.
Nothing too flowery. Just...
with the thing, I like it too. I like the way it came out, because again, they just came out. This is not written. I literally had to learn my own leads that I played after I played the first go around.
Oh, okay.
And the second part where the leads do the harmonies, when you hear first, you just hear like dun 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 dun. When you hear the guitar like that, and then it goes into dun 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 dun, and then it melts with the lead because it's that dual harmony. That was not planned. It just happened automatically.
Oh, okay.
And while I was playing it, I got goosebumps, and I was like, oh. So I kept going, and then all of a sudden I came up with this and that. So, but then when I had that on tape, because it was one take, on the lead, talking the lead. But when I was done with that, I listened back to it, and I realized, okay, here I want to do a dual harmony and all that stuff. But since I just played it, I had no idea what I played. So I literally had to learn my own. Speaking of cover versions, I had to learn my own song, that kind of thing. And no, I'm pretty pleased with it. It's kind of like, it could be anywhere, that kind of, and it's so far removed from all the other tunes, but yet
it still fits in there. I think when you see it at the thing, if you won't be doing a fight scene, it would be the dumbest track possible. It would just not fit at all. It would actually be annoying. I would turn it off. I couldn't do shooting those spiders. But at the end, I'm looking forward to see the ending where that song is actually in there.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm very curious, but I do think that this is a great fit for an intro.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you begin composing for video games in general? Like before Slain, before Valfaris, you said that there were some other games that you've worked on prior to that. How did you begin composing for games in general?
Probably just the same way I do music for soundtracks and movies and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's far removed from each other. It's not much difference. Maybe there it's because I handle it almost the same way. Sometimes I do specific, because certain scenes need a specific thing. So I do watch that scene in the movie and then I do compose to it, that kind of thing. But a lot of times I've just done, especially when it comes to like a theme song or something like that, I don't even, and then I put it in there to see if it fits. Almost like cooking, you know what I mean? You have like a spice over here and you're like, I don't know what to do. Let me see if that works with this thing. And then you put it in there.
A little bit of this.
And you're like, oh wow, this is awesome. Right. I didn't know that rosemary will work with this kind of, rosemary and sushi, I didn't know that worked.
Right.
Whatever. So I'm always excited about stuff like that, finding out things. Again, organically too. I know I overuse that word, but it is because it's literally not premeditated, because I hate that kind of stuff. And I think I'm really bad at it too. So if you tell me, hey, write me a song that sounds like whatever, I probably will give you the worst possible song. That kind.
Right. Cool.
So I'm a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. So it's just like, let's see if it works, and if not, I'd rather make you something new than over analyzing it over and over and over, and just that I need to do it like this, I need to do it, and then usually I don't think that's what metal is. Or music in general, it should be nice, something that grabs you. It doesn't matter if it's nice melodies like this that you may sing in the bathtub or whatever.
Nice. Well, we are rounding the bend here. We got a couple more tracks, so we're going to go ahead and listen to my last pick of this episode. So this is going to be Abysmal Souls, again off of Valfaris, by Curt Victor Bryant. welcome back. That was Abysmal Souls on this Valfaris-centered XVGM radio episode.
Yes, that was a very transy, kind of vibey,
I'd say kind of
sludgy
dirgy.
track. Dirgy?
Dirgy.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember exactly where it is, but or rather what it reminds me of. But we were talking about doom metal, and we mentioned...
Oh, this is very doom metal-y.
Yeah. We mentioned typo earlier.
Yeah.
And there's...
Very gothic.
Just some parts in here that just remind me of... There's a part of a typo song that I could say that I like, but if I can't name the song, maybe I don't like it that much. It sounds kind of like Peter Steele's just voice.
Yeah.
Like,
Very, very goth, but at the same time very sludgy, doom. It's kind of a mixture of a bunch of different forms of metal. Very kind of symphonic as well, like some symphonic elements mixed with the choir. But yeah, this is like a vibe track for me.
Yes.
You know, this is definitely one of those songs where like you can kind of zone out and play the game and just kind of like bob your head a little bit to it. You know, it's not crazy fast. It's not got a terribly super memorable hook, but at the same time, you're just kind of like letting loose. And
It's very much an in the zone
yes,
type of a track.
Yes, for sure. So, since we're coming around the bend on questions, I think my final question was, if the guys at Steel Mantis reached out to you and they were like, hey, we want to do a Valfaris 2, but you have the ability to put together a dream team band of currently still living musicians in the metal community for a potential Valfaris 2, including yourself in that lineup for whatever instrument you want to play, who do you choose to compose with you for this game? Who is your dream team band that you would get?
It's a tough question. Because I wouldn't want to be in there because I want to have the dream team.
You want to like add a different like member?
Conducting it and then composing it, and but then be the conductor and all that stuff. I wouldn't have another problem in that. The other thing is you have the key word living.
Yes.
Currently living music. And that's why it makes this a twice hard question for me to answer. First, it's almost like if you could put together from all and any body parts from a woman, put together the most beautiful woman or something like that. And you know that doesn't work, because if I take the legs from that girl and the arms from that girl,
right,
and the chest from that girl and the face and the nose and it just doesn't work.
Right.
At the end, it's going to be
Frankenstein's monster.
Unbelievable. Ugly woman.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So again, not trying to cop out because I don't want to get in trouble with my friends, that kind of thing. It's really a hard question because I really don't know. But I would love to have, you're mentioning a Machine Head, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I love the way Rob Flynn does certain things, you know what I mean? That Davidian thing, that song,
right,
at the end, and the way, especially now that, evolved a little bit with the singing, I could see him in it, you know what I mean? Vocally.
Oh, for sure.
Example.
Yeah.
But then again, also Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do I use Rob for the guitar or for the vocals? Or, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then on the bass, I would love to have, because not only a wishful thinking or maybe something that I'm already planning on, maybe drop a little hint or a little seed. Doris Ye, from Catonic. I don't know if you know that it's CHTHONIC. Her name is Doris Ye. She's the bass player in the band, but she's also is the main force in that band.
Okay.
But she rocks too. She's an unbelievable bass player. They're from Taiwan. That's what.
Yeah, they're a Taiwanese band,
which is Taiwanese. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I love her playing too and all that. I love her stage presence and all that stuff. We're in 2020, let's be inventive. Let's make even going to the concerts a little more fun too, because we got the technology now with all, the stuff that's out there. So yes, I would love to have her as a bass,
okay.
That kind of thing. But on the same thing, Tommy Victor, from Prong, I would love to have him on, so I could hear some of the singing that he does, and then on so on. I keep going to Rammstein, you know what I mean? Those guys are so freaking creative when it comes to the rhythmy thing. And the rhythmy, yet so commercial, but yet on the other hand, the singer is out of his mind with some of the singing he does, but it's so much fun to listen to. And, I don't even have to talk about the live show. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
It's just the creativity. And that's what I'm trying to say. It's not just like I want to use
Malmsteen for the guitar playing, and that kind of. It's just like I would mix them up again. Coming back to Curry, maybe that's my next band name, Curry.
Curry, there you go.
mix them all up, but I couldn't, Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth, that kind of thing. I think it would be a nice asset, or Schmier from Destruction, or even Mark Tremonti. Where probably a bunch of diehard metal fans are probably like, oh, that's wussy. No, he's not. He's a super. First of all, he loves heavy, heavy metal.
Oh, for sure.
And he's a heavy guitar player. Just because he's more on the, with some of the bands that's more considered commercial or something. But as a guitar player, I love his guitar playing. Even when he was in Creed, he brought elements in there that actually made the band way more interesting than. Than
that's
what
true.
I thought.
And I read something like he was rated like one of the best like metal guitarists like of the decade or something like that, or one of the decades.
Okay, good for
something like
good
that. Yeah, I read something about that.
Okay.
So.
But I totally appreciate and love what he does with that thing. And again, some people may not understand. They're like, oh, how can you talk about Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth, and then on the other side you talk about Mark Tremonti, that kind of thing. But I know he.
Well, this is Dream Team.
Really
that's the whole point of it. I mean, you could pull from all different.
Some names,
Yeah, that is one wacky band.
I would also love to have David Gilmour in there, but you said metal, that kind of stuff. So coming back to
that's true.
Full circle, bring in David Gilmour, Pink Floyd, or a Richie Blackmore, you know what I mean? Hey, even the girls from ABBA. Hey, I'll
there you
take
go.
For vocals.
So they're my dream team.
Awesome. That is a great answer. And I want to hear that soundtrack. So now if you get Valfaris too.
No, now you got me all thinking.
Now you got to reach out to all these people and bring them in to do tracks.
Just because it's near impossible, that alone gets me so motivated, because all that no is always for me like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
And then that whole no makes it way more, like they say, the chase is more fun than the kill.
Oh, yeah.
And so let's see, let's see. Stay tuned.
Something tells me the girls from ABBA would be down.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's wrap up the episode with our final track, and then we'll come back with our final break. This song is called Birth of a New Death, off the Valfaris soundtrack. Welcome back. That was Birth of a New Death off the Valfaris soundtrack with our guest of honor, Curt Victor Bryant. So that song had a lot of really cool guitar work in it. And I especially love towards the end where it kind of mixed in with the synths really well. And it had like this vibe that, I don't know, like I want to say that it kind of had like what's the song? Cashmere.
Oh,
did you get a Cashmere vibe?
Yeah,
with the strings?
I didn't at first, but now that you're bringing it up,
with the strings, I totally got like a Cashmere vibe from Led Zeppelin. So that was me. Was that intentional, Curt, or?
I was never a big Led Zeppelin fan, so I don't think so. But they're incredible. It was just, it's like the Beatles and the Stones. And it was like Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin. It was always the Purple guys for me versus Led Zeppelin. If you mention like that, could it be? Sure. But one thing that's definitely not, there weren't synths. Let me tell the guys, those were actually, and that's how this song came about. I was just having total fun, having an odd beat, doing some guitars, and I had a plethora of an orchestra there, and musicians from a symphony orchestra. And you know how those guys are, they're so trained. There's just no making mistakes with those kind of guys. I was getting so giddy in there, and I'm like, go, wah, wah, wah. I mean, if you put together Einstein with some math professor, with some other one, that was me. I was just like, I was conducting with like carrot sticks and whatever was laying around. And like, no, go, wah, wah, wah. You see, when you tell them what to play, they can play it.
Right.
It's just, they give you that look. Don't ever do this to me.
Right.
That kind of thing. But so I'm like, go, ba ba bam, ba ba bam, ba ba bam. And at the end, we're all hugged, and it was good. But doing the thing, I know they all wanted to kill me, and that's how it came along. So I hope it doesn't sound too much like a synth, because then all that pain and suffering,
right.
Guys,
No,
men and women went through.
It definitely. I got the strings vibe for sure.
Yeah, I think the synth comment was more along the lines of I think there's an assumption that when we hear strings that they're synths.
Right.
No.
And no offense taken.
Awesome.
I'm not. And I totally. And I just wanted to say that it's so common that it's either drum machine or a synth and all that kind of stuff. Because again, who is insane flying around in the world, getting like certain things? Because again, it wasn't really necessary, but I was able to do it. I wanted to do it, and it worked out for me personally, that kind of thing.
Cool. Very cool. That's good to hear. So Valfaris 2, have you heard, are the developers interested in possibly pursuing a Valfaris 2?
I don't know. Literally, you would have to ask them. I really don't know. Not that I don't want to tell you.
Well,
I really don't know. Plus, don't forget, we're on the hangover of just finishing it up.
Right.
And all that stuff.
It's so new.
So it's that transition, the hangover of, finally it's done. And like, wow, it's actually out. Because again, having it on all those platforms and all that stuff, it's not something you take for granted, that kind of thing. So yes, this is not some of those $300 million games out there, that they end up at the Oscars and all that stuff.
Right.
But because again, originally when they came to me and I saw it was, because I'm a flight simulator kind of guy, yes, I like, and as a matter of fact, I listened to y'all recent, the last episode where you were talking about Sierra.
Sierra
company.
Very cool.
And I love when Sierra had Load Runner out. And it was like 94 or something, like 95. I think it was 95, Load Runner. And, I kind of like the soundtrack on it and the game and all that. So, I obviously I like those games and all that thing. But to me, I didn't know that it was still a thing. To me, I thought we already virtual, because like I said, I started working on that virtual reality thing, and then one that's an augmented thing. So, and then of course I'm like flying big planes and all that kind of stuff. And so all of a sudden I'm like 3D and whatever there is, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, there's still a Donkey Kong going on. I'm all like being a jerk,
Right.
They're like, no, you don't know, because they're like, are you disappointed that it's not like Doom 7 or something?
Right.
Said, well, I didn't know is there a market for something?
Oh, for sure.
Because again, if I do it right. I told them I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to give you a badass soundtrack that, and I don't know if you followed when Slain first came out, not Slain Back from Hell, but when he first was released.
When Slain first came out, there was a problem.
There was like a glitch or something like that.
Yeah, I heard about that, and then they re-released it.
Metal guys are unforgiving, right? But man, they're nothing compared to the gamers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they were ruthless. I had no idea, you know what I mean? But the crazy thing was, people will be like, wow, it's not right. But man, the soundtrack is badass.
Yes. Yep. That perfectly sums up the video game community. That's basically it. It's just like, this game was terrible, but the soundtrack was amazing. All right, so final question before we get to our favorites. If Therian, the main character in Valfaris, could have his own beverage, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, whichever you prefer, what do you think he would drink?
Tonic from hell?
Tonic from hell. I was going to say like a Shirley Temple from hell.
Except instead of grenadine, it's blood.
Yeah. Or like a Bloody Mary
Tonic.
Or something like that. Yeah, that fits. I'm thinking with the red armor and all the blood.
I would have said like, or Sambuca. Not a lot of people like Sambuca. Right?
Yeah.
I like Sambuca because it has those 3 coffee beans in there. So let's put 3 like flaming something because you can light it.
Flaming skulls. Yeah. All right. So favorite tracks of the episode. So usually what we do is we go with the guest first. So since you're the composer, we want to hear your pick first. What's your favorite song out of the ones that we picked?
I gotta go with 3 of them.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the Mass Upheaval. It's just fun, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Mass Upheaval just kicks ass. And then the Cosmic Decay.
Cosmic Decay, yep.
Yeah, it's a Mass Upheaval, the Cosmic Decay. Just because, again, I think playing that live will be so much fun. It's kind of hard.
Yeah. All right, Justin?
So, top of my picks would be Chronic Dissolution. Primarily because of how different it was and how it made me feel. And then I would probably follow it up with Infectious Fear and or Birth of a New Death.
Okay. Yeah, Cosmic Decay is probably the winner for me. That riff, I love that riff. And Mass Upheaval. Just so much fun to listen to on that one. So really heavy. And again, I've been listening to it nonstop because I keep dying at all these really ridiculously tough bosses. So, all right. So, Curt, again, we want to thank you so much for being on the show. We had a blast talking to you. Yes, a real pleasure.
It's my pleasure too.
Talking to you about Valfaris and all other stuff involving your world and everything. Where can we find you on the web? Promote away, whatever you'd like.
The easiest is probably on Facebook, at Curt Victor Bryant. If you want, I'm not super active on Instagram, also at Curt Victor Bryant. But again, I'm not on there a lot just because I do 100 flights a year, and there's a lot of good projects right now that I'm really digging myself into. So I'm not always on there, but I try to be at least somehow. I'm not posting any food pictures. Let me say this right. If I do post any food pictures, it's because it's some weird thing, that kind of stuff. So
no cheese sandwiches. Sorry, Justin.
Yeah, exactly. I will do it in the guy's dedication or something like that. I want to have fun with it too, because I've seen it's become very political and a lot of people whining being just like strong behind the keyboard. I'm not even following those guys. I'm not even going for it or I just want to have fun. Right. So and that's how I'm doing the Facebook too. And so it will be at Curt Victor Bryant on both of them. Other than that, like I said, I'm working on hopefully sooner than later, releasing vinyl and CD that are very elaborate, because there's a lot of songs, especially with vinyl. I got to see how to cramp all those in there. But I want to make it like very informative with graphics and also text and all that. So maybe get way more insight from my side, from the soundtrack side, not so much that special edition box has. That's just really music, they didn't really say anything on there, which I know they kept it for the game thing. They did it on purpose. It's not something they did wrong because they left that part for me in order to provide the music stuff and so on. But I want to make it really nice and worthwhile for the people that are interested in it.
Awesome.
So that way, it makes it a little more fun again.
That's really cool. Awesome. Well, we look forward to that.
Yeah. So, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons. without whom this show's continued improvement would be impossible. They are Alex Messenger, Scott McElhone, Cam Worma, Chris Hart, Dan Lawton, Chris Murray, Kung Fu Carlito of the Heroes 3 podcast, Jordan and Anson Davis, Chris Myers, Llama Adam, Jeremy Rutz, Peter Panda, Bedroth, Nick Davis, Brad Austin, Mixmaster, and the Autistic Gamer 89. If you would like to become a patron, you can sign up at patreon.com/xvgmradio. There you can see the different tiers as well. Just $1 gets you a thank you and access to our monthly live shows.
You can visit our website, xvgmradio.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and learn more about your hosts, as well as any of our guests or composers that we've had on the show.
If you'd like to reach out to us, you can always email us at xvgmradio@gmail.com.
And if you'd like what you've heard, please consider giving us a rating on iTunes and a review.
You can also join our Facebook group and chat with other VGM lovers at www.facebook.com/groups/xvgmradio, where we talk about everything from current game news to sharing awesome VGM tracks, or just talking about the podcast itself.
And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both of those sites is @XVGMRadio.
If you don't have any other social media or just want to try something unique, check us out on our Discord group chat. Links will be in the show notes.
So in 2 weeks, Justin, what do we have coming up? Who do we have coming on the show?
So we have a return guest coming in 2 weeks. We are going to be covering the Rhythm Heaven series with Wee Guy, a.k.a. Nico, a.k.a.
His name is no longer Wee Guy.
I know. I saw that on Instagram, actually.
I'm crushed. He's now... so his name now is Nico Tengoku.
So we'll have to change that.
Yeah, we'll have to change that. It's no longer Wee Guy, or it's the artist formerly known as Wee Guy.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what you have looking forward to in 2 weeks. So, again, this is Mike.
And Justin.
Signing off for XVGM Radio. Or Justin's cheese sandwich.
There we go. Hey, as a Swiss guy, the cheese thing, I take that very personal.
Yes.
I guess besides metal in my blood, the other thing in my veins, it probably would be sweet cheese, you know what I mean? But if you let it flow, if you let your energy come out and all the thing, man, do I sound esoteric? Maybe it's time for that new age record I always
Yeah, there you go.